Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 9th, 2024 New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting. The prayer tonight will be given by Alderman Brinson.
I'd like to ask Mr. Dale Moore to come up, and while he's coming up, he's our teaching pastor at Union Point Church and a good friend of mine, and please.
Well, blessings, everybody. Let us pray together. Lord, I just want to give you thanks. I want to praise you for all you have done. And Lord, particularly for this evening. Lord, you have called us together for such a time as this. And Lord, I can speak your blessing upon each one. Lord, those that make decisions, those that may be making statements, those that will be speaking to various things. Lord, you know what it all is. And so the bottom line is this, God. We need your wisdom. We need your wisdom in all things. Your wisdom from above, which is pure and is peaceable and full of mercy and open to reason and good fruits and all the things that you've told us. Lord, we thank you for the community that you've given us. And Lord, I thank you especially for those in leadership. Lord, there's so many other things that they could be doing, but they've chosen to do this. And I pray, Lord, that you will just bless them, especially this evening, Lord, just move in your might and your power. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, folks.
If you're able to stand, please do so as we pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Alderman Creel.
Here.
Alderman Royal. Here. Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Odham.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Brinson.
Here.
Okay, board item number 3 is to approve the agenda. Are there any changes?
So moved.
Second.
A motion to approve the agenda in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Next is request and petition of citizens. Madam Clerk. Okay, first up is Miss Ruth Cooper of 1022 Colleton Way.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. And thank you all so much for the New Bern We Can't Bear Litter program. I'm going to be out at Pierce Park tomorrow at 3 to pick up litter. I'm so glad you all are doing this for several months every year now. And Brenda has my little flyer about the semi-annual litter pickup in Duffy Field, which is May 4th. And as the chief said, may the 4th be with you. I'd love to see a couple of you come to that. We have like 10 zones in Duffy Field that we have lined out. If 20 people show up, that would be 2 people per zone, and we could get a lot of litter. If 40 people show up, that would be 4 people per zone, and we might even get all of the litter. And I don't really know the whole program for the We Can't Bear Litter program that Carrie Warren and George Childs are doing, but I hope there's a big component to try to get people to litter less. I know when I see vacant lots in Duffy Field that don't have litter, they don't get littered as much. Where if there's a lot that's heavily littered, what's one more Dorito wrapper or Mountain Dew can? People do throw litter there. So I hope there is a big educational component. But if you have, any people at your church, any youth groups, anybody that might want to come to this Duffy Field litter pickup, the food will be really good. My husband and I will be fixing it. It's mentioned here, and there will be raffles of little Walmart gift cards. Last year, I think a Boy Scout group that came as part of Clean Sweep, I think they all got little Walmart gift cards. So anyway, like I said, this is just a semi-annual thing that we do. We do get gloves, bags, grabbers, and stuff from Public Works the day before. And then we have these maps made up that we give to people for a zone that they would work in. And we get quite a lot of litter picked up, but we could always use more people. And I also just want to thank you for the progress we're making on the Wellness Center in Duffy Field. I've only been here a couple of years, but from what I hear for a long time in the past, Duffy Field kind of got promised things that didn't happen. But I'm so glad things are happening now, like Stanley White and the Wellness Center, and our litter pickup. So hope to see some of y'all there, maybe May 4th. I think Bob Brinson came a year ago, didn't you, Bob? Yeah. And I know Marvin's been there in the past, and I'm there twice a year, plus other times. So hope to see you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Charles Cushman of 4701 Trent River Drive.
Good evening, Board. As the Mayor said, my name is Charles Cushman. I'd like to begin by apologizing for my informal dress tonight. I have been moving furniture into the Harvey Mansion all day long, and I'm going back there to continue that as soon as we're done here. But I'm here this evening to speak with you about an effort that we're undertaking regarding the naming of a roadway for a pillar of this community, a leader for many decades in New Bern, Mr. Marvin Raines. Marvin passed away in 2013. He was a civic leader, a business leader, pretty much universally beloved, I think you'd find. And along with Kevin Roberts and Marvin's son, Michael, we're undertaking an effort to try to name a section of the North Carolina 43 connector for Marvin Raines. I am going to very briefly go through kind of the legal process with DOT, sort of the how this gets done, and then I'm going to let Kevin and Michael address why it ought to be done. So the DOT has a pretty streamlined process for the naming of roads, bridges, or ferries. This, of course, would be a road. It'd be a section of North Carolina 43 connector of approximately 4 miles, part of which has already been constructed and part of which will be constructed beginning next year. The requesting parties, which in this case would be our group of 3 people, submit the application to the DOT. We would be covering the costs of the application to the DOT. There's no cost whatsoever to the city. Part of the application process includes the preparation of a form that kind of sets forth the parameters of the request. And along with that form, you're asked to submit a resolution from the local government in which the jurisdiction of that road lies. In this case, the roadway lies partially in the city of New Bern and partially outside of the city limits. So we're going to undertake a similar parallel effort with Craven County to do this as well. The resolution would be passed by this board with a vote. It can be as simple, as brief as you guys choose. There's a folder in front of you that we've brought for each member tonight that contains resolutions that we've had passed already by 3 civic organizations. Swiss Bear, the New Bern Chamber, and the Neuse River Association of Realtors have already passed resolutions in support of this. The DOT also asked civic groups for you to submit 3 civic groups of a resolution as well. The city could undertake a resolution similar to that or something simpler, more brief if it chose. That's sort of the overview. As I said, the construction of 43 is going to really ramp up next year, and we're just hoping to get our paperwork together. The way the timing works is we need to submit our paperwork to the DOT by completion of the roadway. And that's kind of a moving target, so we'd just like to have the file all together in plenty of time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain those. I know that Kevin and Michael have some kind of more personal details to share. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And right on cue, next up is Kevin Roberts of 1008 Colleton Way.
You'll love to have an attorney talk about the details of the what, the why. I was lucky enough, oh, by the way, thank you for letting us be here. I was lucky enough to actually get to work with Marvin, spend some time professionally and personally with the man. He was a dear friend. A good many of you knew and worked with Marvin. I don't think everybody did, but truly was a native of this area and a man of this area. He was the type of man that if you wondered just how this might work or how that might work, he was always willing to help and give his opinion on topics that meant something. You're bombarded with people that are willing to give their opinions, but a lot of times Marvin was said to be a man of few words, but when you ask him for help on something, he was always there. I would never go so far as to say he's the only individual that's ever contributed greatly to this community. This community is what it is because so many have contributed so much. But in this case, in this case, on that stretch of road, Marvin knew that the opportunity for the citizens in this market to grow, and do what all of our citizens are asking us to help it do, that was where the opportunity lie, in that area. Highways are always the thing that make things happen. People move where they can move. He knew that that was an area that had to happen. And everybody that was involved with that project at the time, it actually became funny at times, the number of trips he would make to Raleigh to lobby for this effort. So I think in this case, where Marvin's concerned, we have an opportunity to just do a good thing. He did that. It was said that, would that stretch of road have happened without him? You know, what is it, the old thing, we're all replaceable? I guess it might have. But everybody that was involved with it, DOT people and local leaders at the time, said that it surely would not have happened as easily as it did with Marvin at the helm. We'll all benefit from that road being there. I think it's a nice thing for us to do, to think about naming it in his honor. So, thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Michael Raines of 704 Madam Moore's Lane.
Thank you very much for hearing our request tonight. Like Kevin said, I was fortunate enough to see my father go to Raleigh and to see him work more behind the scenes. That's the type of person he was. He typically stayed out of the limelight and really liked to deal with things individually with people. So I was fortunate enough to get to see him for probably about 15 years, work on what he and I kind of refer to as the outer loop of New Bern. You know, you could look at New Bern on maps like we would always do, and you'd see we're fortunate enough to have rivers and great geographical things, but New Bern can only go so far to the east. You run into Havelock, Croatan. I mean, I'd sit around with my father and other civic leaders. They'd always talk about where's the city going to grow, where's it going to grow. And when Bosch did their expansion, I remember that's when some movement started going with this 43 connector. And we're fortunate enough to see half of it built probably about 10 years ago or more. Actually, more than that, because father passed away 11 years ago. But then it just stopped. And, you know, there's nothing more frustrating if you've ever been involved with any kind of development or seeing anything done where it stopped halfway. And so, unfortunately, he didn't get to see it finished. But after he passed away unexpectedly in 2013, people started saying, we ought to name this road after your father. We ought to do this. We should probably do that. And there was a lot of push at that time. But, again, it was a half-built road. And it kind of just went by the wayside. And then we found out that the road finally got funded a few years ago, and it's going to be built, found out now, mid-2025. And so I'm asking for all of y'all for your support to help get it finished. I know some of you may know my father. He would not ask for anything like this. I think it'd be a great honor for it to be named after him, and certainly be much better than 43 connector. It's not a very good name for a road. But thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate any support you can give.
Thank you all. That's all the petition of citizens for tonight. So, board, we'll move on to the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board on items 5 through 8?
Make a motion we approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes. Consent agenda carries. Next up is item number 9. Conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance to rezone properties on Glenburnie Road identified as tax parcels 82124004 and 82120026 from R10 residential to C3 commercial. Mr. Goff.
Good evening, Mayor and the Board of Aldermen.
Good evening.
The next item on the agenda is the public hearing for what's known as the Glenburnie Road rezoning request. That case number is REZ-002822-2024. The applicant in this case is Warden Smith, PA, and the owners are as follows: JKB Associates as well as RKC Associates, paraphrasing. And it's located just off of Glenburnie Road. The current zoning is R10 or residential 10, and the proposed zoning is commercial 3. It's approximately 5.191 acres in size. The R10 zoning district is designed to accommodate single and two-family homes. It's a medium-density residential district, and most development follows that trend. The commercial 3 zoning district is established for offices, personal services, and retail goods, as well as convenience goods. A lot of these are located along major thoroughfares and arterial roads to provide services and goods for the citizens. This next slide is the use comparison chart. The permitted uses are shown with a Z next to them, and the uses that are permitted by special use are followed by an S. Some of the major differences, both do include the use of single-family detached. What is not included in the residential 10 zoning district are major commercial uses. Some considerations for this request is the proposed rezoning involves 2 properties, and they are currently zoned R10. Adjacent to the properties are zoned C3, C5, as well as R10, R10A, and R6. This could be considered reasonable as a natural expansion of the commercial zoning districts. In the following maps, you'll see that these are adjacent to existing commercial properties. And on the February 15th, 2024 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval for this request. This next slide shows that the sign was posted on the subject property, notifying the citizens and all those who pass by that there is a public hearing taking place for this request. And this just gives another perspective. You can see the street sign at the intersection of Amherst and South Glenburnie. This vicinity map shows its location, again, adjacent from that intersection. And to the north, you'll see H.J. McDonald Middle School. That, along with some other properties, are zoned R10. And in this picture, you'll notice that the subject properties, as well as properties to the north, are zoned R10, and all those to the east, west, and south are zoned C3. So what is needed from the board tonight is to consider a resolution approving, my apologies, that is the next item. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this request.
Does the board have questions for staff before we open the public hearing?
One question, what is the proposed use for this property?
So the proposed use was not disclosed, and staff does not ask about what the proposed use is for this application. For a straight rezoning request such as this, all the uses that are permitted within C3 should be considered. Anything can happen until building permits are pulled.
Okay, and what is the zoning for H.J. McDonald?
That would be R10.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
As these 2 pieces of property exist currently, could they accommodate residential housing units on them, given the fact that they are rather long and narrow? I mean, given setback requirements, a roadway, to get in, to access them, could they even be developed?
I would not say that it's impossible for the one that's a little bit wider off to the west, but that does face an access issue. Again, it would be a challenge to get access, but it's not impossible. The much skinnier piece represents a much, much larger difficulty and likely would not meet setbacks.
I know you'll discuss this during departmental review, but would access to this property be off Racetrack Road, or would it be off Elizabeth Avenue, or do you know?
Staff does not know at the time because a site plan was not proposed for a specific use yet. That would be discussed, and that would be proposed by the applicant. Whether or not that access is granted off of either one of those roads would depend on the driveway permit that's either issued or denied.
Is it reasonable to think access could come off of Glenburnie?
It could be reasonable that a potential deceleration lane or whatnot to provide access to the site could be used off of Glenburnie. The same could be said for the other roads as well.
Same could be said where?
Say again?
Yeah, my only concern would be, and I know this is jumping the gun here, but would be accessing off of Elizabeth or to Elizabeth, and with the fire station right next door and the intersection right there as well. So, and I know that will happen during departmental review.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, I will open a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against item number 9, please come forward and state your name.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. My name is Eric Remington. I'm with the law firm of Ward & Smith, and I'm here representing the applicant tonight, also representing the owners, JKB Associates Limited Partnership and RKC Associates Limited Partnership. I would just say that this is really not an expansion of the C3 zone, although it appears that way. This is more of a cleanup process because of these two sliver parcels are really, as you say, it's not practical to probably use them for residential purposes. It makes sense and it's consistent with the future land use plan to have them included in the C3 designation. As far as Ms. Royal's comment, Alderman Royal's comment, question about whether what this use is. Again, as Mr. Goh said, this is basically supposed to be considered for any use that could be done under the C3 category at this point. To my knowledge, there is not a specific plan that's been addressed yet at this time, but it makes sense to include these two areas within the C3 designation based on their location, size, and the fact that they are owned by the same owners as the other portion of the C3 that's on that side. So we'd ask you to approve this request and basically join these two with the other parcels as C3 designation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments?
If there's no more comments, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. What's the pleasure of the board on item number 9? Or any further discussion?
My concern is the access coming and going. I don't quite understand that part there. How are they going to, actually come into the property? That hasn't been spelled out.
I guess, I don't know if staff wants to chime in, but the access of whether it's residential or commercial, it's still facing the same conundrum with getting there. Whether it's residential or commercial, there's no clear access.
That is correct. Without an official site plan that's submitted, we couldn't review that, and either Public Works or DOT would have the final say depending on who's issuing that driveway permit. And depending on the use, let's just say it's a fast food restaurant with a drive-through, a traffic impact analysis would likely be required from DOT, and improvements may be warranted and required during that process, as well as restricting and controlling access.
I have a question on the that little sliver that you mentioned could be a deceleration lane. Whose call is that? Is that DOT's call since it's their road?
The applicant, whoever would propose that site plan, could preemptively propose that, or DOT could require that.
Okay.
And they own, the same owner owns the property adjacent to it, correct?
To the southwest, correct.
Okay. Well, Mayor, if nobody has any questions, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance to rezone the properties on Glenburnie Road identified as tax parcels 8-212-4004 and 8-212-026 from R10 residential to C3 commercial.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Next is item number 10, consider adopting a resolution approving a substantial amendments to the FY 2019 and FY 2020 annual action plans of the CDBG program. Ms. Fulmore.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. At the last meeting, we had the public hearing for these substantial amendments to move old unspent funds to the new Sunnyside half basketball court installation. We did not receive any public comments from the amendments.
Okay. Pleasure of the board on item number 10.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion if there's no questions or comments from the board. I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving substantial amendments to the fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2022 annual action plans of the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, only question I have, Foster, any idea on timing for this?
I'm going to let DeAsia answer where we stand on the current bidding process.
Okay.
But once those bids come in and the contractors are able to work on the actual concrete and the fencing, it's literally a matter of a week before Parks and Recreation staff finishes the project.
Okay.
Bid opening is this Friday.
Okay.
So I believe it's a 60-day start period it'll be within 60 days
Okay.
that we'll have the concrete and fencing done and then the basketball goal installed.
Obviously, I was thinking about the summertime with kids being out of school. It'd be great if we can get it done.
Yeah, I think we'll be ready.
Okay. Great. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 11. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the purchase and sale of real property identified as tax parcel ID 8243128. Mr. Hughes, the other Mr. Hughes, the younger Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, members of the board, thank you. The next agenda item is to adopt a resolution to approve a purchasing agreement for a very small piece of property located on Racetrack Road. This is about a 4,000 square foot tract. It actually makes up the southeast corner of our Racetrack Road water tank site. The owners of the property approached us a few months ago to see if we'd be interested in purchasing the property. We really didn't even realize the parcel existed. And doing some review of the property line, seeing where it was on site, we figured out that at some point in the last 20 years in fencing improvements at the site, we've actually fenced in the parcel like it was the city's kind of cutting off the access to the owner. We've created a little gate there, a drive access that we do utilize from time to time for other operations at the racetrack tank site. So doing all of our evaluation, we kind of come to the conclusion we had two options. One, move forward with the purchase, leave all of our fencing in place like it was, or option two, basically take the fencing down, make some fencing modifications to allow the owner access to his parcel. And doing all that evaluation, we determined the best path forward for the city was to move forward with just purchasing the parcel outright. So more benefit for the city that way than to go rearrange all the fencing. You have to answer any questions on that one.
Board have questions?
If they don't have any questions, I would like to make a motion that we consider adopting a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement of the property, sale property of tax ID 8243-128.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Jordan. I guess you're on the next one too. So consider adopting a resolution approving the 2023 local water supply plan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. In North Carolina, every year, local water supply providers are required to complete what they call a local water supply plan. So anybody that produces water and supplies it to the public is required to go through kind of a planning workshop every year to look at your demographics, look at growth, look at population trends, look at demand trends on your water use, look at characteristics from your water supply, look how are your wells doing, how are the levels trending, things like that. And all that goes into a very well put together document, and you look at how well are you going to do in the next 10 years, next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. At this point, we actually are running the local water supply plan projections out to 2070. So they're making you look at what do you think your supply situation is going to be with forecasted growth and demand through the year 2070. We got all that completed this year and submitted by the deadline, which was April 1st. And happy to report that it looks like in 2070, we're still going to be able to supply 99% capacity. So we're going to be nearing our capacity with our current supply in the year 2070. So at some point in the next 35, 40 years, we'll probably need to be looking at a new, some additional water supply, but it's nothing that's on the forecast for any time in the foreseeable future. So water supply for the city of New Bern and the surrounding communities that we provide water for is one of the things that we have a really good handle on and don't really have much of a concern with. To finalize the plan, we submit it to the state. They approve the content. They approve everything that's in it. And they send us back a letter that says everything looks good. We now like your board to approve the plan for this fiscal or this calendar year. Doing so completes the requirements of the general statute, and that's what you have before you tonight. It's the final resolution to approve the plan for 2023, and that will meet the requirements of the general statute. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Does the board have questions?
I just have a statement. Jordan, when it comes to water for our citizens of this city and electric, police, and fire, it's a dire need for our citizens. And when we have staff in place like yourself and other department heads, as I just mentioned, electric and police and fire, and we can count on you to make these decisions and prepare such a report for us to come before us, and I put my faith in you. I know you have been doing an excellent job for the city as well as other staff members. So continue to do a good job that you're doing, because I want my water to be clean, especially the drinking water.
Well, Alderman Best, I appreciate the compliment. I will say I'm part of a very big team.
Yes, you are.
They all take their job very serious.
Yes.
They're very committed to what they do, and serving this community is our top priority, and they show up every day ready to do that.
We couldn't do it without you.
Jordan, a question and I guess a comment. When we lost Mayola, that was a big user of water. And I know that with conservation efforts and new advancement in technology, our consumption was going down. I'm sure that's factored into all of this. And when you talk about 2070, I guess my question is there anything that you could see, some sort of manufacturer or something, industry that would come here that you feel like would really move that needle enough to where we need to have any sort of concern about this?
On the typical residential, commercial, institutional, so homes, businesses, schools, I would say no. I don't think you're going to see anything that's going to really upset that projection. Industrial use is really kind of the Wild West. You never know what you're going to get with water use. You could take a 100,000 square foot facility that uses 200 gallons of water a day for a few bathrooms. You could take a 2,000 square foot industrial facility that needs 1 million gallons of water a day for some type of process. So it's really the Wild West for that. We don't know what we're going to get with industrial demand. Jeff Wood with the county and I have a lot of discussion that's back and forth, what some of the industrial industries may need, what we can provide at different locations. What I tell you, I have seen in conversations with Jeff and in some of the requests we've had, it seems like the industrial customers as a whole across the country are doing a better job at reusing water instead of, I guess, as the industries have evolved and the value of water has increased, it's not as cheap as it used to be. So from a business standpoint, I think they've got better at reusing and recycling water in their own process. So even the high water use industries aren't using as much as they did in the 70s and 80s. So there's always a chance of getting a real high use industry in here that may need a big demand and would require us to take a much different look at these numbers. But everything we've seen in the last 20 years of what's the industrial growth that's happened around New Bern and in New Bern, nothing yet has really, moved the needle substantially that make us be concerned about the projections we have.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? It's a pleasure of the board on item number 12.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution approving the 2023 local water supply plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Jordan. Board, next up is item 13 and also 14. If you want to, we can consider both of those together. Number 13 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the sale of 1017 Main Street, and item number 14 is consider adopting a resolution approving the sale of 515 First Avenue. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, we received a bid in the amount of $3,000 from Third Property Development and Estate Investment Group, LLC, for the purchase of the property in question. The bid was advertised, but no additional bids were received. The property is a vacant .125 acre residential parcel with a tax value of $6,000. It was acquired by the city and county in December of 2013 through tax foreclosure. If the property is sold, the city should receive approximately $616.10, and the county would receive $2,383.90. On the next property, Nikki Reeves submitted a bid in the amount of $2,800 for the purchase of 515 First Avenue. This property is a vacant .074 acre residential parcel with a tax value of $5,400. It was acquired jointly by the city and county in March of 2013 through tax foreclosure. If the property is sold, the city will receive $501.90, and the county would receive $2,298.10. Does the
board have questions?
There's no questions. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the sale of 1017 Main Street and approving the sale of 515 First Avenue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Brinson.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes, motion carries. Next up is item number 15. Consider adopting a resolution approving the audit contract for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024. Ms. Ostrom.
Good evening. A request for proposal for audit services was emailed to 59 firms and advertised on the city and state's websites. In response, 3 proposals were received. After review, we recommend the selection of Thompson Price Scott Adams at a cost of $47,500. This firm has performed New Bern's audit since 2019 and has seemed to do a pretty good job. And when looking at those 3 audits, they were the 3 RFPs, they were the most reasonable with the hours that they allocated. There's a significant difference between the 3. Carr Riggs Ingram had 294 hours with $56,200 and going up $2,500 every year. S. Preston Douglas and Associates had 280 hours allocated with $47,250. Thompson Price had 47,500 with 405 hours. In doing our audit in the past, they were obviously more aware of how long it's going to take.
Does the board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving an audit contract for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Creel.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Next up is item number 16, consider adopting an ordinance to establish the Broad Street Pier Project Fund. Ms. Ostrom.
The board approved the use of $120,000 from Ward 3's ARPA funds for the construction of a public fishing pier at its last meeting. The ordinance establishes a project fund for the Broad Street Pier project.
Board have questions?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution to establish the Broad Street Pier Project Fund.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Next up is item number 17, consider adopting a budget ordinance amendment for the Municipal Service District Fund. Ms. Ostrom.
For decades, the farmers market on South Front Street has experienced significant wear and tear. The Municipal Service District Advisory Committee met on April 2nd and discussed the needs, and has recommended $90,000 from the MSD's fund balance to be appropriated to make the needed repairs and upgrades. This budget amendment appropriates that $90,000 from fund balance for the cost.
Board have questions or comments on item number 17?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a budget ordinance amendment for the Municipal Service District Fund.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson.
Yes.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Next up is item number 18, discussion on New Bern's election cycle. Mr. Hughes.
Okay, Mayor, Alderman, we have sent a couple of updates for this. There are several things that have adjusted on the presentation, so I want to go through these, and we're going to take our time going through this. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. So in the nonpartisan election, there are three different methods that local governments can take. The first is the plurality method. That's basically the top vote wins the election. Then we have the election and runoff method, which is what we currently adhere to with the city of New Bern. The third method is the primary and election method, to where if you have more than two candidates for the same position, then you have a primary. That would normally be held in the spring of the year. Once that primary takes place, then that would be whittled down to the top two. The election would be held in November. If there are less than two candidates for that position, then they would automatically go to the November election. Those are the differences. With this method, and if the election was moved to an even year, as I said earlier, the primary would be held in the spring, which would either be March or May, depending on when the state sets that schedule for spring primaries, and the election would be held in November. There would be no additional costs to the city of New Bern for this to take place, if that occurred. Now, if we have our election and we remain it in the odd years, we will have additional costs. So October 2025, if we keep things as they are right now, October 25, that election is estimated to cost $52,550. Then with the November runoff, if one is needed, that would cost $42,550, which is a total of $95,100. Now, I want to go ahead and say right now, each year when we have an election, the county does give us an estimate. The last election we had, which was in 2022, we only paid $28,000. And they gave us, I think it was a $50,000 or $60,000 estimate. So we really won't know until the election occurs and we actually get the invoice. So I want to preface that. So if our elections move to even years with the election and runoff method that we currently have, if that election is held in October of 2026, then we will be paying $52,550. That's the estimate. If there's a runoff in November, there would be no charge because there would some elections that take place in November, and we would just be going on that same election. With the primary and election method, if the primary is held in spring of 26 with the other primaries and the election is held in November with the other elections, there would be no cost to the city for those elections. And the big thing is, if you wanted to change your method of election, that could be done on the city level. The attorney can talk about that. But if we're wanting to change the election from odd to even years, that will require a bill, and we will have to go to Raleigh to request that, which takes time. They're getting ready to start their short session, and time is of the essence if the board wants to consider that. So we're happy to entertain any questions that the board may have.
Questions?
My thought is to stay exactly where it's set. The reason why I say that, because partisan and nonpartisan are two different animals. And that's my reasoning. Over the years, when they had citywide elections, it didn't work very well. So the state and the city came in, the state and the feds came in and changed it to odd years. So therefore, it worked out very, very well for a long, long, long time. And it's still working out very well. That's just my take on that. You know, partisan and nonpartisan, there are two animals there. And that's the reason why they did the following year.
And so the three examples we gave are nonpartisan. So it's not party affiliated with each of these. We didn't give the recommendation of the partisan, since the city traditionally has not done a partisan election. But just for clarification on that.
I think what he's referring to is held with other elections that are.
And so every election in the county, they are the plurality method, and that's what they go by, and everyone has moved to the even year. The city of New Bern is the only one that has not changed that cycle or adheres to the plurality method for elections. And so it's up to the board on
They haven't had the problems that the city had. That's the reason why I think they changed over. If you look at their boards, you can tell the difference. That's just my take.
I would, since I was the one that brought this up, I would also, remind us that 2022, we actually held our election during the primary. So we've already seen that process was not a bad process in more recent history. My thought process in bringing this up was exactly that. It's $90,000, $95,000 that we're going to have to budget every 4 years. And, as you have seen last year and this year, our budget is challenging. And so to carve out $90,000 to hold an election, which we could move and basically spend nothing, to me, that's a fiscally conservative thing to do. And what I would point out that the manager brought up, the reason why we paid $28,000 in 2022, at least the reason why I think we paid 2022, was because we didn't get charged anything for the election because it was held during the federal primary, but we ended up paying for the runoff because it was held as a one-off election on our own. And so that was why I am proposing or asking the manager to consider and the board to consider that primary and election method because I heard our members here wanting to retain the runoff and not do the plurality method. And so essentially to me, this primary and election method most recently was used by our Board of Education prior to 2022 before they went partisan that was how they did their nonpartisan elections. And so essentially, as an example, our mayoral race or our Ward 2 race, those races would have been in the primary, and then the rest of our races that had were either unopposed or opposed, the top 2 from the primary, and the rest of us would show up on the election. So it's kind of the opposite of a runoff, but you still have the same effect as a runoff. And so that was the method I am recommending. I ask the board consider it and consider moving it to an even year election in order to save the taxpayers.
So you're saying a cost at the size of our budget. I like that term. When we spent over $5 million on the elevator, out of how many meetings we have a year, have you did any calculation on that?
I'm just saying that this cost is unnecessary.
I don't think so. Not with the size budget that we have. My thing is that a partisan and a nonpartisan race determines on who's in power at that time. And then if you've seen how they have cut the districts up out through the state, it's evidence. It shows you right there. I mean, how they've been cut up so bad. Have you considered that?
I don't know how that affects.
Of course you don't know.
No, it's not. I said I don't know. I said I don't think that affects our wards because we're the ones that draw our wards. And it's nonpartisan and it has nothing to do with partisan politics.
That's the reason why it has been changed. And you want to come back and change it again.
I am not advocating a partisan election for the city of New Bern.
You're saying the cost. The cost, I don't see where cost comes in to be any type of effect on something with the size budget that we have. You have to look at what, I don't know how old you are, and it's not really important, but if you look at how things keep getting chopped up and changed around, it's evidence. You can see it with yourself. It's common sense. You can look at that and see. I just think it needs to stay the same.
Alderman Best?
Alderman Brinson, when you said that this board wanted to keep our elections the same, the method we use the same way. Right. I was not one of those, okay? Because with me, frankly speaking with me, I prefer the plurality method. But, because, and another thing, I am not one that want to move, add an extra year to this current term. I don't want to add an extra year to it. And I don't have a problem. With me, I know I got a dog in the fight, but with me, I really, whether we go with plurality or we go with what we currently have, the nonpartisan runoff, it's totally left up to this board to decide which method we use. And I understand where you're coming from. We're not talking about changing from nonpartisan to partisan. It's about moving it a year up into 2026, and so that we can still keep the same, I guess, hopefully you're wanting to keep the same runoff method.
Well, it's a primary and election method, but you're essentially in the primary narrowing the field from whatever it is down to 2 people, which essentially is a runoff.
Right. Yeah. And see, with me, the plurality method solves the whole problem. You get out there, you canvass, you run your election, you canvass, you talk to your citizens, and you get your constituents and come out and they vote for you, then however that election turns out, if you end up with 2 votes over, then you've won. And I don't feel that, me personally now, I don't feel that you should have a second chance to go out there and canvass again and get votes and talk to people again. That's my opinion. That's the way I feel about it. But whatever this board wants to do, it's going to require, I think, a little bit more discussion on this, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to just leave it like that for right now.
Anybody down here before I make a comment?
Before you do, I would just one thing, but I want to give them my.
Alderman Pruitt?
I appreciate Alderman Brinson's focus on trying to save money, and don't disagree with that thought process. However, I don't see a real compelling argument being made as to why a change is necessary to what we currently utilize with the off-year election cycle. I would be, I think, in agreement with Alderman Best to focus a discussion on whether the runoff election versus a plurality method, that's a discussion that I think is worthy of further discussion on the part of this board, and to really try to understand what the pros and cons of both of those options are. Versus just basing a decision on the cost of staying with the odd year election cycle. I don't believe that we have to make a decision tonight. Obviously, if the ultimate decision is to make a change that requires legislative approval, then I understand more time that we have to work that through the process, the better. But I'd rather spend a little bit more time discussing it amongst ourselves before a final decision is made.
Alderman Brinson.
All I was going to say was to the point of extending this board, if we decide to move to an even year, extending this board's term 1 year. To me, again, I mentioned this the last time I brought this up, this is the opportunity to do it because this board is only going to serve 3 years and 3 months. And moving the election to an even year would bring us to a 4-year term, 4 years and 3 months. And so, most people would be opposed to extending something to 5 years or probably cutting it to 3 years to change it to an even year. And so my thought process as well is bringing this up now for this board to decide is because if we decided to move it to an even year and extend 1 year, it would be as close to a normal 4-year term as you could get. So the opportunity is there. And that's all I was going to address. Alderman Best?
Attorney Davis, do you know how long the city has been actually using the nonpartisan runoff election process? Do you know how long we've
No, ma'am, I don't. 40 years that I know of, but I don't know previous to that.
Okay. You say four? Did you say 40?
40, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
See, years ago, when they had elections citywide in the city of New Bern, blacks wasn't able to be elected across citywide. So the feds and the state came in and they changed things. With that being said, it was nonpartisan. It wasn't Republican. It wasn't Democrats. It was a nonpartisan race. So it gave each individual an opportunity to serve. And that's where that came about. And over the years, it depends upon who's the winning individual. If it's Republicans, if it's Democrat, if it's independent. It doesn't put other individuals that's running for office in jeopardy. They have went in and cut up the district so bad that they split it up here and there, and no one wants to step up to the plate and acknowledge that. I mean, I don't understand if they're afraid. I don't know what it is. Then we had COVID to come in, and then we had the census done. So things was just getting chopped up here and there. And you have to understand, you have to know the history and know what your past has been in order to go forward. And they keep coming in, changing everything. And if you don't say nothing, you agree with them. I'm saying something. It needs to stay the same. If you don't believe me, watch and see, and it'll happen.
I'd just like to make a couple comments. Alderman Best, if my memory serves me correctly, I think you won your first time. There were 3 opponents. You, Alderman.
Just 2, me and Alderman White.
Okay. All right, so you've never been in a situation where there's been more than 2? Okay. Having said that, makes my point probably even stronger. Having been in elections with more than 2 people, this last mayoral election, one of the candidates, and I think it's either $10 or $15, it's a nominal fee to go file to run for office. One of the candidates that filed for office actually moved out of the city limits during the election. Never participated in any of the forums, or we didn't have any debates in any of the forums. And, just anybody can probably find $10 or $15 to go say, hey, I want to see my name on a ballot, and not be serious about it. What I feel like the runoff does is preserve the opportunity for the citizens to have a clear choice when they go to the ballot, where they're not choosing from, at one time, I think we had 7 people that ran for mayor. And the history will also show that when you have a runoff, I believe Alderman Prill, Alderman Royal, and myself, we all 3 won our last election through a runoff. You did earlier. You didn't, not this last time. But the data kind of shows that it's like 70 or 80% of the time when you have a runoff, the person that came in second during the first election actually ends up winning, which tells me that when the majority of the citizens have a choice between A or B, it's easier for them to choose versus A, B, C, D, and ever how many. I've said from day one, it would be really hypocritical for me to sit here and advocate that we not keep a runoff election when I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have been sitting where Alderman Brinson was several years ago if we did not have a runoff. So whatever we do, if we decide to do anything, I would not be in favor of the plurality method. I get it. I understand it's great arguments on both sides. It'd be crazy, honestly, for me to say, no, let's do away with it whenever that's how I became an elected official. I will make another comment about the partisan issue that Alderman McKenzie brought up, and I think it's a great point that when there's no other races going on and somebody goes to the voting booth and it's just somebody's name, there's not a letter or designation next to them, it gives you a better sense of voting for the person and not necessarily the party. The issue is, when we had our last election, it was still a nonpartisan election, but it's also a public record in North Carolina what your party affiliation is. And when you have the parties that are participating in the election process and they are pushing their particular candidate, it essentially by de facto turned into a partisan election. It makes you work harder, to be quite honest with you, because I've told people numerous times, we don't deal with partisan issues at the local level, and I'm thankful that we don't, because I probably wouldn't want to do this. It's about helping your neighbor. It's not about doing what a party or a chairman or somebody tells you what to do. So to me, the partisan thing, I mean, I run on my name and my record. I don't run on what party I'm affiliated with. I do think that if you leave this as it is, this is going to be a 3-year term. It's not going to be a 4-year term. So every time that somebody was elected out of the last 40-some years that the attorney mentioned, it was for a 4-year term, other than when it used to be 2-year. My point is that if there is ever a change to do, it would be now, because we're not adding a year onto our term. We would actually be serving a full 4-year term. My last comment is, I don't care what we do. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to keep doing what I feel like is a good job for the citizens. If the election is next year, if it's the year after that, so be it. I fully intend to run for re-election because I'd like to get some more things accomplished. So it doesn't matter to me. I do think that we do need to take in consideration the cost. It's going to be hard to tell a citizen that we had an opportunity to move our election a year and not cost us anything, but we decided to keep it on an odd year, which could cost us up to $90-some thousand. So I'm usually one to say, let's go, let's make a decision, let's get it done. I don't think that's the case tonight. So, Attorney, my question for you is, can you give us a drop-dead date on when you need a decision from the board?
Mayor, I can't, but I certainly by next meeting, or actually this week, I can email and let you know. I've had Representative Tyson on standby for several months, knowing that you were contemplating this decision. He's waiting for my answer in the morning to let the legislative staff know what to do, go, no go, because this is a short session. So if we said go in the morning, it is still a slog to get this done. But I will do my absolute best to get us a drop-dead date so that you'll know if you want to change. And that's only with respect to the odd-even. The other methodologies, we can amend our charter with the statutory process, and that takes about 2 months. So we can do that among ourselves, but we cannot do odd-even without legislative local bill. So I will circulate that this week to each of you.
Any more discussion or questions? Alderman McKenzie?
My closing remarks tonight is not to change. It is not a Republican, it's not a Democrat, it's not an independent. You have to look at how you're serving. What is your motive? Why are you so interested in doing something that's not broken? You always hear this philosophy, money. It costs money to do everything that you do. Everything, you know. It costs money to fix up everything. You know, you're always going to have the rich. You're going to always have the poor, no matter what you do. All these things is going to always be there. Okay? So you have to work your way through. I mean, we have a big budget. I mean, you know, it's not that we have a small budget. Mr. Manager, can you tell everybody what the budget is, our budget?
General fund is approximately $50 million total with all enterprises, approximately
$50 million.
$150 million all said and done.
So, and they said how much is going to affect us? $90-some thousand every 4 years? Come on, man. Grow up. I mean, you have to stand up for what you believe, and that's what I do. I stand very tall in what I believe in. And, I mean, for years, history speaks it for itself. You know, I can go back and give you some history lessons, things that this board did that was inhumane to humankind, that they passed the bill to dig somebody up just out the grave, you know. But, I mean, you know, money. Everybody has to live on money. Why that should be that? Why is that an issue? I don't know. Save money.
Alderman Best?
For more discussion on this topic, I mean, I would just tonight, how many of us board members right now want to leave it the way it is? I mean,
that's why I am.
You could make a motion. We could vote on leaving it as it is. If that's
well, I like to give the board members an opportunity. If they're, you know, amenable to just leaving it the way it is, then no further discussion is needed. I mean, but
I'm one. I'm the first one. You're number two.
That was going to be my...
I'm number two. No, you just said you were, and so I was the second person.
Okay.
Alderman Royal?
That was going to be my next question was, I know Alderman Creel said he'd like some more discussion, but we've had some discussion. Are you fine with that, or do we need more discussion? That was just my question.
Oh, if the board wants to take official action tonight, I don't have a problem. Thank you.
All right.
All right, the floor is open if someone makes a motion.
I make a motion that it stays exactly the way it is.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Alderman Royal. Let me get back to my notes here, make sure I get on track. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes?
Alderman Brinson,
No.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
No. Motion carries. So you can put this one to rest. Election will be held next year.
I'll let Representative Tyson know. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
After all that, you gonna say no?
Yeah.
After all that speech you gave us, you gonna say no?
Yeah.
About
Because,
the runoff method?
well, it's because.
I just wanted to make that statement.
No,
You
I-
gonna say no?
No, I
All
appreciate
of
it,
that.
and I'll be happy to say why, because there was a lot to consider, and I had no intention on making a decision tonight, because so many times, if we're going to call it out, so many times this board sits here and kicks the can down the road on topics for weeks and months at end, but tonight on something
Exactly.
that is what I consider fairly significant, maybe you all don't. We just decided to make a decision, and if there was ever a time to take a deep breath and think about something, I think it was tonight on this topic, but the board decided to take action, so that's why I voted no, because there was an option to preserve the runoff that wouldn't have cost us anything. So if that would have been the motion, I probably would have voted for that.
And another statement you just made, don't say that we significantly don't care, okay? It's because this is a topic we had tonight, so when you say that, you're including me in it.
Well, I mean,
and I do care about the
Well,
election process.
I'm glad to hear it, but,
Yes.
you know, it's also been brought up that we had 3 variations of this presentation tonight, and there's been other topics this board looked at where we had different variations, and we didn't make a decision because people walked in, this is the first time you saw it tonight. So I'm just making the point that, you know, I like being consistent about things, and that's all. So, any other discussion on item number 18? All right, move on to item number 19, appointments. I do not see any in the agenda package. Does anyone have any appointments to make this evening? All right, we'll move on to attorney's report.
Mayor, members of the board, one item, I would like to get your final version of the rules of procedure on your next agenda. I understand from your last meeting, we were still hung up on one last issue, and that is the remote participation option. So let me start and go back through the law so that we're all on the same page. Prior to our state of emergency remote meeting statute, your voting and quorum statutes were silent as to how you were counted present for a quorum or for a vote. Meaning the statute didn't say that you had to physically be here or not. Over my career, those of us that do this for a living, got comfortable allowing folks to, back in the early days, call in and listen to a meeting, and then we would keep checking with them verbally, are you still there, are you still there, so that they were participating, and they were counted for a quorum, and their votes counted. We did that with some comfort, making sure that the fact that they were counted toward a quorum didn't matter. And we took comfort in the fact that their votes never broke ties. So we always approached it with, we don't have clear statutory authority for this, but to be safe, let's not push it to where we might have a legal conundrum and we can't answer it without going to court. When the state of emergency remote participation statute was adopted, it specifically says that your participation electronically in those meetings counts toward a quorum and it counts toward a vote. So now we have a statute, we have evidence that the legislature knows how to write a law to tell you when you're physically counted as present and toward a quorum and for voting purposes. Which means that our voting statute and our quorum statute doesn't say that you're allowed to have electronic meeting and counted toward being present or not. So since that statute, the majority of us that do this feel more comfortable not allowing participation outside of a state of emergency that would count toward a quorum or count toward a vote. So the version that I pitched the board is two options. Participating and having it count is not an option, in my view. My advice would be not to do it that way. Because just my luck, just your luck, we would have a situation where that person on the phone creates the quorum or tips a vote. And now I have to tell the board, we've got to go to court to figure out what the answer is because we don't have any law to tell us. That strikes me as an unforced error. It also strikes me as inefficient in that if your participation for a quorum or for a vote doesn't matter, then why are we doing it, right? So the options we have are to call in and not being counted toward a quorum, not being able to vote, but being able to ask questions during a discussion. So we allow that, or we just simply don't allow it. And you might not allow that on the theory that now with modern technology, if you're not physically present, everything is streamed live, which is something we didn't have over my career. Either way is fine with me. I just need to know what you would like to put that in your final draft. Yes, sir.
Present.
Okay. So no call-ins.
No call-in, present. Therefore, you are avoiding going to court.
Does everyone understand what the attorney's asking for? It's essentially to allow someone who's not physically here to participate remotely but not be able to vote.
Correct. So I feel that they need to be present.
So, Attorney Davis, you're saying if you're not present, that constitutes a... So I'm just going to say, maybe I have an emergency, and I can't make it to the meeting, but I can listen and participate in discussions or whatever. I don't have a vote?
Yes, ma'am. That's right. The statute doesn't allow you to call in and participate electronically outside of a declared state of emergency. That is my view of the law. And that's the most conservative view, which is my job to make sure that we don't trip ourselves up.
Okay, and that's just for emergency meetings. Is that for regular board meetings?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. You can call into a regular.
All right.
There are two options. You can't call in. You can just watch. You can just watch.
That's it.
And listen. Or you can call in and ask questions, but you're not counted as being here, and your vote is not counted.
Okay.
Question for you,
Yes,
to muddy the water even more.
Sure.
How does that affect a closed session? So if the board goes into a closed session and someone's on the telephone participating remotely?
Yeah. I personally don't like electronic participation with a closed meeting because the board, none of us has any control over the open mic, over the hot mic. So if you were leaning toward electronic participation, and thank you, Mayor, we would want to exclude the opportunity to participate in a closed session. That would be my advice to you. You can do what you want, but the fear of not being able to control that hot mic would concern me.
Well, the fact, I was thinking, we don't know who else is in the room with somebody that's participating.
That's my point with the hot mic, exactly, which then leads us all to not say anything in our closed session, and we're not having a meaningful discussion.
I'll agree with Alderman Kinsey. I'm sensitive to emergencies that may come up and not be able to participate, but Alderman Best, I would think it would be very painful to be passionate about a topic and be able to contribute to the discussion, and then when you take a vote, you can't vote on it. That's the only thing. I think it just diminishes that.
I was going to say too, that this board has been very generous in that when a member has not been present, but they actually asked for the presentation or they wanted to participate, we've actually tabled it to the next meeting so they could participate and be present. So I would say no electronic participation.
That's 3. Do we have one more? We have 4. Out of the other 3, anybody else have any other comments? Okay.
Is that my direction? Okay.
right.
So you will see that final version on your next agenda.
Would you restate that final version, please, what it will read?
It will have no provision for electronic participation outside of a declared state of emergency.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, it's a public meeting. Anybody can listen. You
Yes,
just
sir.
won't be able to dial in and say anything.
That's right, correct.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. City Manager's report.
A few things for you. Just a reminder, Community Cleanup Day is tomorrow, Wednesday, April 10th. That's going to be on Oaks Road. So if anyone would like to participate, you can meet at Pierce Park, and city staff will lead folks out from there. That will start
Mr.
at
Manager,
3 p.m.
just to comment on that. Huge proponent of this. I push to have this thing done. The only feedback I'll say is in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, it's tough. We have these things on the weekend, during the summer when school kids can participate. I think we'll have more participation, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell everybody I'm not going to be there tomorrow either, because I'm leaving as soon as we finish this meeting tonight and start headed toward west. So I will not be there, but I am a huge proponent and supporter of the program. I just won't be there. So.
Next item I want to let everyone know is Alderman Royal had requested to allocate some funds to a turn signal on Country Club Road heading west on Highway 70. That sign, that light was installed about a week ago, and it is in full operation. So if you get a chance, drive down Country Road, Country Club Road, and take that exit. Magic Midways returns to Lawson Creek Park. They're actually setting up now. They will open their carnival up on Friday. They will be here through the following Sunday. So this is they've returned many times. They normally come twice a year, and we've had really good response from the public for that. So it's a nice family-friendly atmosphere, and everyone seems to have a good time. So we encourage folks to participate in that. And also the last thing I have is I want to remind you that next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the International Economic Development Council is sending 3 representatives to New Bern, and they're going to be looking at 2 properties, South Front and Hancock, and the Old Days Inn property. They're going to look at the properties. They're going to talk with a variety of people in focus groups, and want to ask the governing board, we'd like for you to participate as well. And so what we are looking at is Monday, whether the board would like to have a work session where you can all be together for approximately 1 hour to share your comments, or if you would be interested in small groups on Monday afternoon to meet. So I'd like a little direction on what the board would prefer, but your input is very important for this.
I would suggest, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would suggest a 1-hour work session. I would agree to that, yes.
You said Monday?
Monday, yes. It could be any time in the afternoon or in the evening, whatever the board prefers.
And let me add to my statement, again, I value the input of the board, and I value your perception, and I believe it's always a good opportunity that we can hear one another's take on the property and listen to how you evaluate it, and it helps shape all of us and come out with a collective, cohesive decision as to what we agree to. I value that.
I can do Monday, but it's going to have to be at night. I can't do it during the day.
I can't do Monday. I've got an appointment in Raleigh that's been scheduled for 6 weeks now.
How about everybody else?
I can do Monday at 3 o'clock, and that's it.
Okay.
Is there another date that wouldn't be pressing? I mean, not so pressing?
We could do the Tuesday, but it would have to be after 6 p.m. There are already sessions that are taking place, other than small groups.
I definitely can't do Tuesday. I'm going to be out of town. So We've got two, one that can't do Monday at all.
I can't do Monday.
Alderman Best can't do Monday. I can do, but it would have to be after 5. Alderman Kinsey can't do after 5. He can only do 3 o'clock.
I can do 3 o'clock and that's it.
Alderman Prill.
I can do Monday, but it doesn't sound like it's a workable solution.
So since they're only here for those 2 days, what are our other options if we can't get?
Well, let me, if I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I mean, my point is, it's a possibility I could be back in New Bern by 6 if you wanted to do something Monday night at 6.
Alderman Best?
Yeah, I could do that.
You could?
I'm gonna say I can, because, yeah.
Alderman Royal, Alderman Prill,
I can do it.
Alderman Kinsey.
I can only do 3 o'clock, sir.
Okay. It sounds like it's about 6 to 1 that we could do Monday at 6. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm kind of a maybe, so 6 to 1 is probably fine.
Okay. So if that's the case, we need to call for a special meeting Monday, April the 15th at 6 p.m. at City Hall, if someone would make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I assume the clerk will send out an invite for us, so it will be on our calendar.
April 15th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mayor, we'll reach out to Alderman Kinsey and Alderman Brinson in case you're not able to attend, and we'll see what we can do about working out a time to get your input.
You can't dial in and listen, though, just so you know. We cleared that up tonight.
I'm not going there.
Anything else, Mr. Hughes?
That's all I have tonight.
Okay. New business, Alderman Prill.
Just one quick thing, Foster, if I could. This past Saturday, I had an opportunity to meet with the Sky Sail Board of Directors. They had a Saturday meeting scheduled, and they asked me to just do a brief presentation of just issues or concerns or events happening in the community. One question that came up during that discussion was with regards to the upcoming traffic light installation at Broad and Middle Street. A gentleman, a resident at Skysail, had indicated that he had had a previous conversation with you, and I don't know how far back this goes, that the existing flashing lights could be relocated somewhere else downtown.
That's correct.
And I told him I wasn't aware of any conversation, between him and yourself, and I didn't know what the status of that was. So I'm just curious as to what thoughts you have in terms of maybe reusing those flashing lights somewhere else downtown.
Right, so I have asked the Public Works Director to evaluate other areas downtown since that was purchased with funds from downtown initially, to see if there are any other areas, any intersections that this would work at. And so we will be bringing that back to the board as time gets closer for them to start working on this project.
Alderman Prill, that gentleman, I met him for the first time this morning, and he asked me the same thing, and I told him I had not heard about that, but he was advocating for Middle Street where Bear Plaza is at.
Yes.
That's what he was asking for, which probably makes sense. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. Alderman Royal.
None at this time, please.
All right. Alderman Astor.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes. Last Friday, we lost a very great leader and a mentor in the city of New Bern. We lost C.D. Dr. Barnwell. He passed away. And I'd like to get a proclamation put together for his family.
Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to issue a proclamation to honor Dr. Sidney Barnwell's passing.
Yes.
Any discussion? I assume that we're okay with a typical proclamation that the clerk does, putting that information together. Is there anything specific you want included?
I can get information from the family,
Okay.
and I can bring it to you, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for bringing that up, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
That is it.
Alderman Best?
I was going to also mention about Dr. Barnwell's passing. And also, I was going to ask for proclamation as well, so we're on the same page there. But I was also going to ask, what direction do the city needs to take because I wanted to have the street that Dr. Barnwell lives on changed to Dr. Barnwell's Way, or whatever the family name they want to use. So is that a public works? How do we go about that?
Mr. Attorney?
Yes, ma'am. The board can rename a street.
Okay. So I need to bring that back to city
Yes, ma'am.
clerk, or
If
who
you
do I need to bring
well,
it
if
to?
you can get some direction to staff on the very specific name that we
Okay.
would like, and
Okay.
then we can start researching how many folks are involved and what the steps are. But that's something you control.
When you mean folks involved, what are you saying?
Well,
the
residents on that street.
The residents?
Is there 1 or 200 or?
No, it's probably only about 4.
Okay. Yeah. So we just need to get the facts so that we can take the steps to make sure
Okay.
we don't trip up.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes,
And that is it.
Okay. Alderman Brinson?
A couple of things since we've had a New Bern MPO meeting since our last meeting, and I wanted to bring up updates to I-42 in James City. The expected completion of that has now been extended to the end of 2025.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, but that this time it's due to relocation of utilities and that taking a long time. And then the I-42 bypass around Havelock, they were wanting to get that done by this summer, but that's now been extended to the end of this year, 2024. And if you're curious, the I-42 in between both of those, that contract's already been let and they're working on it, but we actually won't see anything until 2025 as well. And then New Bern is actually hosting the MPO conference next week for the state. And they will be here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So if you've got transportation questions, that would be the time to bring it up. The other thing is I'm going to the NCLM dinner tomorrow night, the regional dinner with legislators. I know we have a great relationship with our legislators here, but if there's anything any of you'd like me to bring up tomorrow night, please let me know. And then I did want to bring up the folks that talked about renaming the 43 connector to Marvin Rains. I would be in favor of doing a resolution to support that if there's concurrence from the board.
Any comments on that?
I don't think there's currently any residents involved in that.
I guess procedurally, we would bring that back, so we would need a motion and a second to give direction to bring that back. Is that what?
All right, I'll make the motion to draft a resolution for consideration of support in naming the I-43 connector to Marvin Rains, or whatever the family requested.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
That's all I have.
Okay, I do not have anything. There's so much going on, I don't even know where to start talking about things. It's a busy city, I know that. Appreciate everyone's efforts tonight. Good discussion, healthy debate. Do we need a closed session?
No, sir. Thank you.
No closed session. So
Mayor, can I add real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
I just checked my calendar regarding Monday for the meeting. It's possible I might not be here. I have an early appointment in Raleigh on Tuesday, and I may leave Monday to make it.
Okay.
May not, I don't know.
So it's possible that we could just end up with 4
I'm hoping that it can, but I just.
Either way,
wanted
we're
to-
covered, so we can have a meeting, one way or the other. If,
Pull the plug, yes.
I will definitely be here, Alderman Prill. We can definitely be here, so might actually have a small group, but we're covered if more than 4 show up, so. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.